All right, we're calling to order now at 7:04 Mountain, so that will be 9:04 Eastern. Trying to take through the list here. Chair apologizes for the very hoarse voice. It's a miracle I'm able to talk right now. This is a definite improvement. I'd like to pull up the agenda as it is. It's quite short. Give me just one moment. So, Madam Secretary, if you'd please take attendance.
Sure. Arrowwood, I'm here. Rocco?
Present.
Okay. Sazelski?
Here.
Tarlos?
Present.
Latham?
Here.
Martin?
Present.
Moulton?
Present.
Rowlett?
Here.
Rufo?
Here.
Mike Seebeck?
Here.
All right, I'll call the alternates, Madam Chair. All the principals are here. Rich Tomaso, Dave Roberson,
Present.
all right, Greg Deal, Roger Roots, Data Logan,
Here.
Dean Rogers.
I'm here.
All right. We have a full complement of members and 3 alternates.
Okay, sorry, I was taking a bite. Wayne kindly brought me dinner. It is time for public comment. If Zoom didn't move the button, they did move the button again, so now you don't have to go to reactions. It looks like there's just a raised hand, unless my screen looks a little different, but it'll either be under reactions or raise hand. If you have public comment, I do see Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, you have the floor.
Madam Chairman, first of all, please feel better. Second, after the last meeting, there was some discussion of the possibility, if adopted, of suspending the rule relating to cumulative voting. I put the question to some members of the authorship team of Robert's Rules, which you can do very easily. I'm not trying to claim any great connection, but they're actually divided on it. I tend to agree with the person who suggested that it would take basically at least 7/8 of the votes cast to suspend that rule in its current form, if that rule were adopted. That's a very, very high standard. I would also note that you could add at some point simply a requirement in the rule that would say this rule could not be suspended, and you would not have a problem with suspending it. Thank you.
I have a question for you then, Mr. Jacobs. Because it's in a rule, and in order to say it can't be suspended, would the statement that says, this is going to get somewhat technical, that it can't be suspended have to be in the bylaw? And the bylaw simply says that the rules can provide for X. Would it be prudent to put in that bylaw if the rules do provide for whatever, the language is, that rule cannot be suspended?
That would work better, Madam Chairman. It would, I think that either way would be sufficient to say you could not suspend the rule. In either case, but certainly putting it in the bylaws would make it a little bit stronger.
And I side with you and the portion of the authorship team that even though it's quite complicated to explain, that it would require a greater number than it would pretty much to alter the statement of principles. But if it would make everyone more comfortable later when we're refining our report and we're offering tweaks, that might be a tweak we will consider to double lock that thing. Mr. Bracco.
So this might be a little bit of a follow-up question, but would that, what was it, 7/8? Would that, like, let's say in the future we were to get electronic voting in, and then maybe we want to go from cumulative voting to maybe some kind of better proportional system that requires pretty much electronic voting. Would we, if we were to amend it in the future, would that take 2/3?
You're talking about two different things: suspension of the rules and amending what would be an existing rule. Amending an existing rule would be a 2/3 vote. There may be a question related to let me see if it, let me just it would, you could do it by, you could change the rule by a 2/3 vote. You can't always require that the motion could not be changed except with previous, or that the rule could not be changed except with previous notice. I actually just did a presentation with which the chairman was at, where I discussed the possibility of changing a rule that could not be suspended. It's actually referred to in the profession as the suspension paradox. I will send you a copy of the paper.
And also, I'm going to ask but I thank you for your information, Mr. Jacobs. This isn't any kind of rebuke of what you just said. Let's get further into these weeds when we get to, if we're going to be refining that language at all. But I would like to put on the record, because I'm sure all of a sudden there'll be wonderful stories spun around this. This whole discussion revolves around the fact of safeguarding a form of cumulative voting so that a majority group could not take advantage of a minority, because I'm sure I don't know what people could think we're talking about, but that's in fact what we are talking about. Okay, we have next the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, which was February 1st. I know there were some corrections on the list. Are there any further corrections for the secretary? Okay, seeing none, then they will be approved with those corrections. Okay, time to share my screen, which makes things difficult. And this is where your questions, Mr. Bracco, would now be perfectly in order and reasonable. One moment. I want to pull up that. I don't want to share the same screen, and you'll see that I'm a fan of watching horrible fates and plane crashes videos on YouTube, which is just probably not entirely healthy. One moment.
Well, it's better than some of the other stuff I know you watch.
Okay, people are going to take that the wrong way. Talking about the pimple popping ones, I do watch those too.
Yes, among other things.
The channel I like, though, called The Cellar, has horrible fates. I don't know why I watch this stuff. It gives me nightmares. Okay, let me know what you're seeing on my screen. You should be seeing a document titled Second Meeting Comparison of Ordering.
That is what I'm seeing.
Okay, I might need to make it a little bit smaller if I can. You know, it's not gonna let me. Hold on one sec. So we'll just have to scroll. Yeah, we're just gonna have to scroll up and down. For some reason, see how that Zoom is, maybe with the Chrome. Just give me one moment. View. Zoom. There we go. I wanted to get them all on one screen. Mr. Bracco, would you like to explain the point you were making before the meeting started?
Sure. So I believe it was Mr. Latham that added the average and median over on the right. And I think those are useful metrics for seeing maybe where things are at overall. The problem is that I think maybe certainly a lot of people have put 100 for things that they want to drop. And I think a couple of folks have added numbers like Mr. Rufo has 43. And I think a few others might have skipped around numbers a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just seeing things. But I think if we're going to use those metrics, and maybe we're not, but if we are, I think maybe everybody, it would make them more useful metrics if everybody were to rank them 1 through 16, and maybe we leave the highlighting for things we want to drop or something. But I think that would make the metrics more meaningful.
Okay, the 100 was at my direction just so we could get an idea, but I do see your point, and I think that 43 was a typo. It was supposed so that was fixed. It was a fat finger. What I think we should do at this point, for the 1, 2, some of us only had the 100 score for line number 17. I'm going to change all those to 16 because we have 15 that quite obvious. Why isn't it letting me edit? Oh, there it goes. Okay, because I'm sick and I'm not.
Madam Chair, that's going to cause a problem with my rankings because I have a number 16 on number L. I'm not sure why, but it looks like for some reason on my rankings, 6, 7, and
explain.
9 disappeared.
I know, and I'll explain. I'm going to give you the chance to alter those because we had those pending email ballots when the sheet first started that then removed, they redlined and yellow lined 2 items. So what I think at this point, take a look at your numbers and I'd reorder them to make up for your missing spots and put your 3 100s where you would put them in a ranking of 16 items. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Is that something you want me to do right now?
Or I could do it, yeah, so we can see a more.
I was going to say if I can direct, I guess, if you're since you're in there driving.
Yep, I'm right here. So I'm just going to go through the numbers. So it looks like you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see
So
6.
it looks like 6, 7, and 9 are what's missing.
I think you accidentally skipped one because only 2 got deleted.
Okay, because I see 8 jumps to 8, then 10, then 11, 12, 13, 14,
So
15,
it looks
16.
like your 8 would be 6.
Yes.
And then your 9 is skipped.
10. So it'd be 10.
So
7.
10 would be 7.
Right. 11 goes to 8.
11 goes to 8.
I might be able to help here, although there's one part of this that I don't have information for.
Could we at least just 12 goes to 9.
Right. 13
Yeah.
to 10. 13 to 10. That's up top. There you go.
Uh-huh.
And then 1411 goes to 11.
Okay.
15 goes to 12. 16 goes to 13. And then for
Out of those three, which would be 14, 15, 16?
In this order going down 15, 14, 16.
15. So 15. I'm going to call upon you next, Mr. Bracco, but with me barely
There we-
being well, I can't.
That's got it.
Okay. And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to. Now, were there any that you were because, okay, you got the reds back in. Okay. That's what I was hoping for. Okay. Mr. Bracco.
Oh, no, I don't have anything.
Okay. Thank you. Something I had also said before the meeting started, and this can be something we discuss after we resolve this main core ordering. And always what the chair says is the chair's opinion. It isn't necessarily the committee's opinion. So you guys can quite obviously disagree. I do think the sweet spot is still 18. And it looks like we had cooled down now to 15, but I think that's good. It gives us some wiggle room if anyone wants to go back and revisit any of these, because I know there was one Mr. Seebeck felt very strongly about. There's one that I withdrew early on that I might bring back up. And I know Mr. Latham wants to get even with me for taking his jokes seriously. I was getting sick at that point, though, just so you know why I had zero sense of humor. But feel free to get even with me. Mr. Latham, can you explain, just for those of us who aren't quite as math inclined, the difference here, or what you see as the significance here between the average and the median? Mr. Latham?
Oh, needed to unmute. And by the way, I hope just part of our discussion, I'm still confused on what we want to do on the cumulative voting proposal. So that's kind of why it's still, well, I guess we've changed that back to 16, but I think I understood there was going to be a discussion on whether we want to keep it in the report rather than have it just, in the back pocket if we needed it. I kind of lean toward keeping it in the report just to give people notice that that's an option. And then, of course, if the restructuring proposal passes, then we don't need it. So anyway, just wanted a heads up on that. So average and median. Let's just take that line 2, proposal B. You take all the numbers across 10, 8, 11, 8, 7, 9, 7. You add them up. Since there's 7 columns, you divide that by 7. You should get, and I'm guessing assuming that formula is correct, you get 8.5. What does median mean? Median means that half of those 7 gave that proposal B a ranking at 8 or below, and half ranked it at 8 or above. And where that can come in handy is when you look at a proposal like P1 or R. Well, before, when you had 100, that was kind of making that, that was really depressing the average. Or for, when we had Mr. Rufo had a typo there and it was 43 in there, that was really dropping down the average. So the median sometimes is helpful in kind of seeing how that compares to the average numbers. And I don't know if you can do this, Madam Chair. I know I can do it on my end. If you know how to sort those averages and medians, it might be interesting to do those. I can kind of walk you through it. I basically made a copy of that and have it on.
You should
on my.
have editing privileges to the sheet.
Oh, really? Well, let me see if doing it on my end will show what I'm talking about. So I'm going to try to sort this by first by the average column, then the medium column. Now, you know what? It's not letting me sort by range. So that's not available to me.
One moment, let me stop my share because otherwise
Oh, you know
people's
what?
emails will be exposed. Let me make sure.
Oh, I see. No. Maybe I can do it.
Okay,
I
but
need
I
to
want to make
select.
sure you have editing privileges.
Okay. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it.
Okay, well then I'll start sharing again. I wanted to explain the deal because, and I do see hands raised, and I'm going to start calling upon them. With leaving that red highlighting for cumulative voting. In our last discussion, we had some, and we wanted to see how this sheet ended up looking, that didn't want to keep cumulative voting. There seemed to be, I know I changed my mind, and it seemed like others may have, they may not have, that if the restructuring doesn't pass, that we did not want to move to that, because that's kind of what the purpose of regionals was supposed to be. Now, perhaps others don't feel that way, but the red at this time, though I think you changed yours to red there, I don't know, people may have changed their mind, but the first order of business, in the chair's opinion, is that we need to vote whether we want to red line or yellow line cumulative voting. If not, we will keep that because it's everybody's 16. And as I said, this is a work in progress. Things that probably not things we redlined, but things that maybe we dropped. But this doesn't rule out things we redlined either. Things we dropped voluntarily, or things that were yellow or red line, because again, I do think the sweet spot is 18 can come back, but let's get to our top of what we've got here. And then maybe we can revisit some of those items, which with a much smaller universe. I'd like to show you something. So I'm going to change my screen here one moment. This is in the drive. If you look in the ordering proposals, I have here, we have the items that have been yellow lined so far, and the things that have been red lined so far. What I don't have a list of is things that people withdrew before even being considered. You're just going to have to know that in your own mind, as people will know their own proposals. I can tell you that the one that I want to bring back, that I saw as an issue when I made it, and then it seemed like it might not be an issue, and I do think it's a live issue. Let me find on the chair's master list what number that was, so you all can keep that in mind. Sorry, I'm a little slow on the update. LL. I'm thinking of bringing back LL. But won't deal with that till we deal with our top 15. Once we get, at least even if all we agree upon tonight is our top 4 or 5, I'd like to get a survey out. I'm working with the chair on that. Apparently we're using different survey software now. So I am working with her on that, but I'd like to get our first group, because we had, I believe, at least informally agreed, and it's the way the chair is going to be proceeding, unless someone brings a vote to do things differently, going to send them out in batches. So, and I do thank you for your work on that math part there, Mr. Latham. So seeing it, pardon me, I might need to take some inhaler. Seeing it resorted.
And by the way, I just resorted it by median so people could
Yes.
see that difference. So there's a little bit of difference once you get down to, I guess, the 10th proposal there.
But maybe I'm going to add another column here we could end up deleting potentially. Unless
can
you would
I-
like, you can do it. Well,
Can I just say on the cumulative voting, I only put it red. I think there was some email instructing us to put it in red. So I did that. I mean, but yeah, and it really kind of depends on, again, where we want to go in terms of keeping in the report or not.
well,
And again, I kind of lean for keeping
towards
it.
that's why, and if you thought that was my instruction, I apologize. That wasn't. It was my instruction to those who were still up.
Mr. Latham has 2 16s in his columns.
That's because it's the lowest ranking. Otherwise, it would have been 100 because I interpreted one of the instructions to mean,
Well, then
that
please rank those. Just like, so this other 16 should have been red. The ones that you really,
no, because I still want to keep it in the report, and then 16
I
just
think
kind
you
of
misunderstood my instructions.
okay.
My instructions were to please keep in red things that you would like to see deleted and rank them as 100. If you'd like to see that there still, you just want to see it low, I'm going to ask that you please rank between those two 16s.
Okay. But I showed it, so I should unread that then
If you want to keep cumulative, unread that, please.
all right.
And I don't want cumulative by itself. I've changed my mind on that. Does anyone else want cumulative unread? We're going to end up probably, unless everyone says no, I want to unread it, then we won't be doing any kind of vote on it. But that because of what I understood the indication, that was going to be the first vote I was going to take this time.
And
So
again, I'll just, if people are kind of wondering what we're talking about. So I think the argument for keeping cumulative voting there is just as a backup if the
we're going to get to,
restructuring proposal fails. But as you're saying, you would just rather do all or nothing, which I think is one strategy to
well, and we'll get debate on that,
pursue.
but I'm waiting for you to do between L and SS. Which one is, you have them both as 16.
Oh, right.
One should be 15.
Well, again, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rank it right after the restructuring proposal, just because I think it kind of is that same quality.
Okay. I'll give you a moment to
So
change your.
it's going to take me a minute.
Okay, go ahead. As usual, because normally, just so y'all aren't thinking that I'm at work, typhoid Mary like this, they've been letting me work from home, but I slept really hard before this meeting, so I'm still stuffing my face as normal. Let me know when you're done.
Okay. I think I did it. Maybe I'm going to do a little ranking of my own deal there just to make sure I haven't duplicated anything. And just while I'm doing that, to tell some folks, so in my earlier versions, I did, when I just had a tie, they were both equal to me. I gave them the same number, but then as I mentioned in sometimes college rankings, when teams are tied in the rankings, then rather than go from 3 that are tied to 4, they skip 4 and go to 5. And that's what I did in some earlier versions of this. So, okay, I'm seeing no duplication of numbers in my column.
Okay, if you could get that look back to the way it was before.
which I had it sorted by median. I can go back and sort it by average.
Please sort it by median. That was helpful.
Okay.
At least for now, we might go back to something different in a moment. Okay, it seems like there's still enough folks, at least of those who chose to rank, which is obviously not everyone on the committee, of a desire to, I don't know whether it would be to yellow, SS or Reddit, because it's made it this far. The chair is going to make a motion for purposes of this time. Again, it doesn't take it completely forever out of the running until we get it, until we finalize our report. And actually, until our last meeting leading up to convention, nothing is truly final, but I really hope when we publish a report, we're not screwing with it too much. That the chair is making a motion that we yellow line proposal SS, which would move it to the yellow line sheet and take it off this one. For now, I'm going to make an argument for that. And then I assume Mr. Latham and some others want to argue against it. And I realize I was a bit rude. There were some, hold on, I'm having a really hard time seeing the participants list. Were there any? Yeah, Mr. Moulton and Mr. Bracco, I withdraw that motion temporarily because you guys have patiently had your hands waiting and it seems like I bowled along. Dr. Moulton, then Mr. Bracco.
Yes. I apologize for any echo. But so on cumulative voting, I think cumulative voting is important. I hope that even if RR fails, which I hope RR passes, but if it fails, I hope we do cumulative voting. But in the interest of compromise, I'm fine with yellowing cumulative voting. I would like us to have it in our back pocket to introduce if RR does fail. I would not feel comfortable redlining cumulative voting. So I would encourage people to yellow line cumulative voting. I disagree with the chair when the chair says that 18 is the sweet spot. Honestly, I think 15 is the sweet spot. And I think we're getting pretty close to 15 right here. I think the chair is overly optimistic about how many proposals we can get through at conventions. Libertarian, we do have a lot of time. And I thank the chair for her diligence and tenacity in getting us that time. But libertarians, they love to argue. So
No, we don't. Sorry.
I'm pessimistic about how many we can get through. And I'd love to be proved wrong. But I think it's a good idea to, in my opinion, we should go for 15 for the sweet spot. We should have maybe 5 yellows, maybe a little more in our back pocket, just in case. And we should order those yellows. And that's the approach that I favor. And that's how I will be voting this particular meeting. But I think we're coming to consensus on these things. And I have, I've compromised myself. I'm not a big fan of resolve affiliate disputes, at least the way it's currently worded. So, and I put that 6. I'm a big fan of cumulative voting, but I'm okay with yellow lining that in the spirit of compromise. I'm traveling right now, so I don't have my gigantic scissors with me. But for those of you who follow the list, I did send you a useful video on that subject, which I recommend you check out. Thank you.
I found that seriously entertaining. Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Mr. Bracco.
Well, first off, I'd like to second finding that video useful. I would suggest that if we're doing any kind of sorting here at all, that we use average rather than median. The reason for that is when somebody has proposals, or a few somebodies have proposals that are ranked much differently from others. For example, Mr. Seebeck has that ranked much higher than everybody else does. I think proposal O has some difference of opinion, sort of like medium versus late. So I would recommend that we use the average rather than the median because that would take that into account.
Thank you, Mr. Bracco. Okay, disposed with that. So I think we are back on, I'm going to remake that motion that we yellow line SS cumulative voting. And I'll make my argument for it now that I didn't just stomp on a few people with their hands raised. I do want to move to a more model of at larges, obviously, with ultimately with STV. That always just sounds like it sounds like STD to me. But to have both regionals and cumulative right now. I'm sorry, I'm not the best arguer tonight. So if you want to get one over on me, tonight's the night. With considering just the current culture of the party and everything, I just don't think that's wise. I think we need to shoot for it all. We need to shoot for curing the really bad structural problems. And again, none of these things means it's gone forever. We can reconsider it later, but to get to our top 15 here, and then as we start arguing or debating, is a better word, arguing sounds so adversarial, on whether the sweet spot is 15, whether it's 18, that obviously can come back into play, but at least we're narrowing our universe. So that's the motion and my argument for it. Would anyone like to speak? Mr. Bracco.
Yes, I would like to speak in favor of yellow lining it and would not be in favor of red. I think that I don't want to give people an out for not voting for RR. I would rather I want both to be blunt. And I want to structure the report in a way that gives us the best chance of getting RR through. And I think that not having something like, hey, here's our backup plan. I don't think that having the backup plan in the report would be conducive to that. So I would be in favor of yellow lining or SS.
Okay. And for people on recording who might not be following along because they don't read bylaws for morning devotionals, proposal RR, the restructuring proposal, includes cumulative voting. So no one here is denigrating cumulative voting. We're all very much in favor of it as a part of a much larger structural cure or resolution, maybe is the better word. Okay, but just because we're getting to the wire here, I would like to. Oh, Mr. Seebeck, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Well, to be fair, I'm not in favor of cumulative voting, but I am in favor of the restructure, and I plan on moving to strike that from the floor when we get to that point. Speaking with my teller's hat on, and also just as someone who has never liked all these crazy attempts to reinvent voting, it ain't broke, so let's not fix it till it is. But that's an argument reserved for the floor. As far as this goes, yellow or red, I really don't care. I just don't want to see. I want it to be at the bottom of the list, no matter how we slice it.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. The chair is going to take a chance and ask if there's any objection to yellow lining SS. Okay, hearing none. For right now, I'm making a big note. I'm just going to delete that line because it's everybody's last number except for Mr. Latham's. So I'm going to delete that line and ask Mr. Latham to renumber accordingly. And then we will work on getting in chunks our next orders. Mr. Bracco, I was going to wait to call upon you to give Mr. Latham a chance to do that unless what you have to say is related to this.
Nope, you can put me in
Okay.
line until afterwards.
Okay, but I will stick this on our yellow list. I have a big note to do it. Okay, Mr. Latham, oh, I see you're doing it already. You're Johnny on the spot. Now, before I call on Mr. Bracco, again, we haven't dealt with what's more useful, average or median, excuse me. I suppose this is going to be the time where we're going to start discussing that. I wanted to see it this way just to see how many were tied. I didn't ask Mr. Latham to order it that way in order to prejudice us one way or another visually. I wanted to see if it really made a difference. And it does for some of them. It looks like after 6, it makes a difference for a few. So now, Mr. Bracco.
Well, there's 2 that I see that everyone agrees on. So I would like to move that we rank H first and J second.
Okay, would you like to speak on that more than you already have?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to ask I see Mr. Seebeck.
Point of parliamentary inquiry first would it be in order to amend that motion to extend it to the first 6?
It would be in order to do that, to add, yeah, just like you said, I'm not the most wordsmith person this
Then
evening.
I move to amend to list the top 6 as we currently list them here as our first 6 on the report.
So it would go H, J, M/K, MK Ultra, as we've said, and N, R, R. And EE, was that the other one?
That's the first 6, yes.
Okay.
Because I'd like to speak to that if I could.
Oh, please do.
It's pretty straightforward. Those top 6 wind up both on the median and the average listings. Yeah, I ranked a couple of them lower, but to be fair, part of that is because there's some other details I was looking at that I think need to be addressed further. But at the same time, I think there's pretty much a consensus that those are our top 6. So I see no reason not to proceed in that direction.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to it as well. Seeing no other hands, I agree with Mr. Seebeck on that. It seems, I know there was lots of compromises and stuff on those first 6 that we do that, and I could tell you if we do, what the chair's going to do is copy this sheet and preserve it as it is now, and we'll work on the rest, understanding that we're going to add 6 to each number without having those in front of us to just keep narrowing down the universe, but I'll preserve what we have here. I'll just make a copy of the sheet to continue working. And that would also, because folks like Mr. Seebeck had ones ranked differently. Of course, someone can move that I don't do this. I think it would give everyone the opportunity to do some more re-ranking, and we might find even more consensus. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, just a point of information. There's been discussion about multiple surveys of our proposals going out. Was there ever a determination on how those multiple surveys were going to be divided up amongst our proposals here?
No, and if we could reserve that maybe to the end of the meeting.
Okay, what I was thinking here was that maybe the first 6 might be good candidates for the first survey, but
I kind of think that's what everyone was thinking,
yeah, that's
but there was no
no, I don't know.
formal determination. I can tell you that is what the chair was thinking. Okay, so we're on the amendment. The original motion was to rank H and J as the first 2, and the amendment was to add MK Ultra and NRR and EE to this. Is there any objection to Mr. Seebeck's amendment? Hearing none, that passes. So what that does is just add an entire list of 6. Is there any further debate now on the main motion as amended? Okay, is there any objection to the main motion as amended? Hearing none, congratulations, we have our first 6. Let me go into that folder and duplicate this list so that we don't lose this data. Ordering proposals. Take a copy. Okay. I just want to rename it so I know what I'm doing here. So this is preserved. Okay, so now that we know we have that preserved, we can work off of this. So I am going to now, just to get these out of our site while we work on the rest, delete these rows. Whoops, did the wrong thing. Let's go back. It just deleted the contents. I cleared, I didn't delete. All right. Now, I'd like to, I think everyone has editing privileges. If we'd like to take maybe 5 minutes, everyone go through their list. We have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you'd like to renumber your 1 through 9, you might keep it the same, but some of that might have changed your mind. I know mine aren't changing. In other words, my 7 is going to become 1, but that might not be true for you. So if you could take a moment to do that, appreciate it. Mr. Seebeck, if you could take those red boxes off, since those are, you were the only one that had those as deletions.
And I did that.
Oh, yeah, I know it, but it was on there originally that way. So, no, but we're good now.
Well, no, I took the red off. I
Oh, okay.
can just,
Sorry.
if Mr. Seebeck was wondering, wait, I didn't do that. That's because I did it.
Blame Mr. Latham, Esquire. Is someone taking care of for Chuck? Yeah, I see somebody did.
I got it. I took care of Chuck. No worries on the boxes. Thank you.
Oh, Does anyone else need help or?
He was
Chuck
just
was
driving. He was driving, so he couldn't get to it. So
Oh, gotcha. Okay. No, everything else looks good. So should I run another sort here?
I think it automatically did, didn't it? No, it didn't. Yes, if you could, just so we can get a visual.
Well, it's pretty close because we just deleted everything above. I mean, average actually is in order already. So just,
No, it's not.
it's not, what's?
no.
Four,
Oh, you're
five,
right.
seven.
You're right. There's one out of order. Okay.
So now that hold on. Sorry.
Isn't
give me
math
a moment.
fun?
I need to take some inhaler. I think this is the point at which now we look at averages, and let me please take some inhaler. Oh, I'm so glad this meeting wasn't yesterday. Mr. Seebeck heard me at the platform meeting. That was painful.
Tuesday, that was terrible. Yeah. See, what you need to do is just get blazingly drunk on the alcohol, flush everything out of your system.
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
Oh, trust me, it does work. You'll have the headache from hell, but it'll clean you out.
I already have the headache from hell. I've had a splitting. This is unlike anything I've had, and it's not COVID. But okay. Now looking at it from the average, it would go from, I'm not going to do proposal names, I'm going to do titles. Increased dues payment, increased dues in one payment, add notice requirements, clarify dropping candidates. And if I could do some commentary in here, increased dues, controversial or semi. So honestly, I don't think it should be, but I think it might be to some folks. Dues in one payment, then add notice requirements can be complex. I think clarifying dropping candidates is going to be a slam dunk. That's just a weird wording that has been in our bylaws for a long time that Ms. Matson has brought up, I think, every convention. At RCV, the e-voting, we know we're going to need to do some reworking of keeping all of the procedures. It's just because we didn't do the balloting rewrite. Candidate nominations, change delegate allocation formula, clarify quorum issues. If we were, it would be in order, and I do see some hands after this commentary to just say, this is our next ones, or there can be some shuffling around. This is just data for us, but if people would like to move things differently, that's also in order. I don't know whose hand was first. What, Dr. Moulton or Mr. Bracco, do you know?
I'll defer to Dr. Moulton.
Dr. Moulton?
Okay. So real quick, it seems like there's a lot of consensus on doing the dues stuff next, doing increased dues and dues in one payment in some order. The order isn't that important to me, but I think that should be the next thing that we take up. When I was ordering things, I tried to put all the election related stuff together, and I still think that's a good idea. And so I would encourage the committee to do that. And it seems notice requirement, there's kind of a consensus that it's somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think it's a good idea to stick notice in the middle of the election stuff. So my recommendation would be to put notice either before or after all the election stuff. And then there seems to be consensus that the remaining stuff, the delegate formula and the quorum issue, is at the end. So that's my recommendation, that we do the dues stuff, and in some order we do either the notice or the election stuff, and then we do the remainder. And then we need to figure the order within the due stuff and the order within the election stuff. But that's the framework that I'm going to advocate. Thank you.
And just as a point of comment, because I know you're driving, I think is kind of the way it is right now. We've got the chunk of dues and then notice, and then a chunk of 1, 2, 3, 4 having to, well, I'm going to say 4 having to do with candidates, but remember that QQ is about candidate nominations from affiliates for their public elections, while the other 3 are about internal elections. So, well, by title, it looks like they're all about candidates. I do think it's somewhat separate, but I do think they do fall in that order now, though things might flip around. Mr. Bracco, your hand got lowered?
Oh, apologies.
Go ahead.
So B, looking at this, B seems pretty close to consensus. I think I'm one of the ones that has it ranked lower, but that one looks pretty close to as consensus as we're going to get at this point from here. S almost does. The one outlier is actually where the chair has it ranked. Given that outlier, I'm just going to do a motion that we rank B 7th.
This is
Go ahead, Madam Secretary.
that was an official motion.
Yes, please.
Okay.
This increase dues as 7th.
Mr. Rufo, did you wish to speak on this motion, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, only because I had a motion too. I wanted to do B7 and S8. I think it makes sense to do them back to back anyway, and it's already quasi consensus. Like, we increase dues and then talk about whether or not we want to do it in one payment. I just think it makes just logical sense and logistical sense to do it that way.
That was the motion I was going to make too, Mr. Rufo. I'm the one outlier only because I just. Okay, let me give you. I was going to make that motion because I see I'm outnumbered. But I'll just let everyone know why I did it as an outlier. I do think for staff sanity, dues in one payment is a necessity. Again, it was asked for by staff. I think psychologically it'll have a higher chance of passing if it's separated from other dues. I know that seems counterintuitive rather than logically grouping them together, but I think after let's say we pass the increased dues payments and you got that, and we move on to another subject rather than boom, oh my, just increase the dues and now you're saying it's got to be in one payment. I think that's going to cause the dues in one payment to fail. But hey, if it fails, it fails. You know, you win some, you lose some. But that's why I'm an outlier. But it seems everyone disagrees with me, and I'm not going to hold things up. But I just wanted to explain to everyone my reasoning. So we do have an amendment. First, there was the motion to make B number 7, and Mr. Rufo wanted to add S as number 8. Mr. Latham, did you wish to speak to either of these?
Well, maybe I can't do what I wanted to do now. I want to do kind of as we did in the prior, where I just did a substitute. Wanted to do a substitute motion just to take them all in the order that they're displayed, because I think they are now in a sensible order. They're grouping like things together, but maybe if we're adding S, then we're too deep for that now.
We're not, Mr. Latham, but if you'd like a point of advice, I think it'd make it.
Just dispense with this one.
I think you're complicating things, to be honest.
All right.
Okay.
I can be patient.
All right. Okay, first I'm going to ask Mr. Rufo, did you still intend to have your hand raised?
No, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objection to Mr. Rufo's amendment to the original motion, whom I forgot made? I'm sorry, which was to make B number 7. So it would make the main motion be that B and S will be 7 and 8. Okay, seeing no objection, I'm going to ask if there's now an objection to passing B and S as 7 and 8. Okay, seeing no objection, the chair has a question for the committee. And first a comment. With the survey, remember, we can always revisit, it would be a reconsideration, but we can revisit some of this ordering. I kind of hope we don't. I hope we use the survey more for like, oh my God, that's a good amendment. We didn't think of it before. But we can use the survey in any way that we wish. Does the committee, because we know the motion that Mr. Latham wants to make, do we want to remove BNS from the screen and do another internal renumbering? Or would we like to just go to Mr. Latham's motion? I'm just trying to get a feel for the room. Mr. Bracco.
I would personally like to do another reordering. Just looking down here, they're actually on O. It seems to actually be a bit of a dichotomy. 3 people have it ranked 1, and 4 people have it ranked in the back half at least. So I think that one's going to be a little. I don't know where that one's going to end up landing. So I would personally like to do a reordering.
Okay. We're probably going to end up doing a vote on reordering. So I'm going to take that as a motion that you'd like me to remove BNS from the screen and us do a reordering. Mr. Latham's in line. I'd like to be in line as well. Mr. Latham.
Well, just looking at the current rankings, I mean, I'm one of the ones that has O ranked pretty low, as does Mr. Moulton, as does Mr. Roulette, as does Mr. Seebeck. But I'm one of those who's okay with just moving forward as they're currently ranked on the averages. I'm not going to speak for the others, but again, I think my sense is that just we've all kind of expressed our preferences, and I'm willing to live with taking, O and F after it, even though, maybe they're ranked lower by me personally. They're in acceptable order. The things I have ranked higher are still in the realm of, reasonably being able to be considered. So I'm not feeling like I need to argue for a reordering, but I'm open to hear from others, but I'm not one of them.
Okay, I can't see my screen to put my hand up, but it indicated I'm opposed to reordering, and I'll say why. Obviously, I'm one of the ones on the opposite end of the spectrum. I did a lot of personal compromises on the first 5 in all of our discussions to get, at least somewhere, some things were more important to people than others. I would have been fighting for O as perhaps number 1 or number 2, like a banshee, because it was that important to me. But in the spirit of compromise, I changed some of my numbers. So I think what we have on the screen is all of us giving something and it's staying logical. So I am arguing against further reordering and believe that we should just go to Mr. Latham's motion of taking the rest on the average. Would anyone else like to speak on Mr. Bracco's motion to remove BNS from the screen and reorder? Mr. Rufo.
Yeah, I think I'm actually with the chair and Mr. Latham on this one. It's reasonable enough. The difference is, I don't, And if we already have at least one person who's got the stuff ranked lower willing to accept this. And just to say, I like the idea of going to these next two bylaw changes that some of us are saying was probably just going to be two ground ball, nice, easy ones. After we go through a series of very difficult ones, there's going to be a series of 4 or 5 in a row now, right? We're going to start off with like 3 or 4 easy ones, then we're going to hit the big ones. Then we're going to get through the do's, and those are going to be tough. It'd be nice to let everyone breathe and pass some easy ones. And I think these top 2 pass the easy ones, and then we get into all the voting stuff together, like Mr. Moulton wanted. And I think it's the perfect order the way it is. Re-looking at it, so I don't think we should remove anything. Let's just keep the order.
Mr. Bracco. Well, actually, Dr. Moulton hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll have Mr. Bracco.
Yeah, real quick. I'm on the same page as Mr. Latham. I ranked the notice one low because it's worked for 50 years and sky hasn't fallen. So it's not a big priority for me. But in the spirit of compromise, I'm fine sticking it where right after the do stuff. It's no big deal. Then we can group the election related stuff together. I think just stick with this order and let's keep rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Mr. Bracco.
Well, I guess some of the people who had that ranked low are okay with it. So I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, is there any objection to Mr. Bracco withdrawing his motion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Latham, it would be in order for you to make your motion at this point.
Move that we just take the remaining proposals on the screen in their current order.
So that would then be go O, F, R, P1, QQ, L, and MM.
Yes.
Did you wish to speak to that further?
No, I think we ventilated that one pretty good.
Okay, is there any objection? All right, seeing none, let me do some housekeeping here for the committee's benefit. So I did this when I used to do well, I still do platform, but I'm not platform chair, I guess is what I'm trying to say. On a lot of our little worksheets and in our internal references, I will be renaming these proposals by their numbers, but I'll put parentheses formally R or something like that, because it will be hard to go back and reference minutes and things like that. In our final report, it won't say any of that, but I'll keep these internal cross references for us. The next somewhat housekeeping was a point that was brought up earlier. I think it was by Mr. Bracco. Right now we have, is it 15 proposals, Dr. Moulton? I think it's 15. I suggest now I try to work out with the chair, sending out the first 6 in a survey. And we are going to continue some work and refinement. FYI, there's somewhat of I don't want to call it a glitch, but a complication in the whole survey thing. That's why it's taken a little longer for me in the chair to determine what survey thing we use, and it might end up being SurveyMonkey if they make it way too complicated for me, because this was discussed in multiple LNC meetings. We're in the middle right now of a move from Google Suite to Microsoft Suite, because I think the savings was like $6,000 a year. It might have even been more than that. I'm sorry, I'm really starting to fade fast. And I don't know if that's going to cause some kind of weird problem, but let me get with the chair with that. So high on my task list is sending out a survey on our first 6. Second, I think now is probably the time, because I don't know if there's any provisos in our first 6. There might be, but let's straighten out that issue of the proviso language. I think just in case there's any provisos on any of those, it's all smoothed out. Is that acceptable to everyone, Mr. Rolette?
That would be a good thing to do next. I just have one question first. For these surveys, how expensive are they? Are they more expensive than sending out a regular email?
The survey is an email.
Okay, cool.
It's just that SurveyMonkey used to allow you to buy a month, or their yearly plan was super cheap. It's gone up to like $350, but Platform uses it as well. I try to be stingy with the party's money. The chair said they have a survey program that staff is currently using, but I haven't seen it yet, and it might not be suitable to our needs. So I'm waiting to get some clarity on that. The chair hasn't been as sick as I've been, but she's been sick as well. There's really something going around. And I think she started getting sick after I did, so she might be heading on the arc that I'm heading on. So it might be SurveyMonkey if that ends up being the quickest thing. So hopefully that wasn't too much answer than you asked. Dr. Moulton.
I will make a earmarked donation of $100 for SurveyMonkey, if that would help. I don't know if we can get a few other donations from Platform or Bylaws or other interested people, but if you think that's a good platform and the party doesn't have the money, maybe we could get some money together.
For all the years I did Platform and everyone tried to like, oh, use this or use that. SurveyMonkey is actually a great program in the way it breaks down statistics and things like that. I'm willing to make a $25 earmarked donation to SurveyMonkey. I mean, I do think it's the preferred platform for a lot of things we might end up needing for leading up to convention as well. But for sure, Platform and Bylaws. So I'll let the chair know, and I'll let you know, Dr. Moulton, if that makes a difference. I didn't want to make the insinuation that the party doesn't have the money. I just would prefer that the money we have now go to ballot access. You know what I'm saying? What's already in the coffers. But I do appreciate that. Let me see if that makes a difference for her. And if anyone else, wishes to be generous, no pressure. You can speak here, or you can email me, or whatever you like. But I'll keep the Bylaws and both Platform Committee informed, because it does affect them as well. So, Mr. Rolette, the issue of the proviso language, let me stop sharing for a second and let me find your email. Now, I know at the time there was some broken links that I had to fix in tinyURL, but I found your email earlier and I should have bumped it. I think I searched.
It was on January 4th.
I think I just searched for the word final adjournment sine die and it came right up. Yes, there it is. Let me pull that. Let me print that to a PDF and pull it up, because again, I can't share my LNC email box. And let me import that PDF into the ordering here, and then I'll be able to pull it up.
So this contains proposals which have changed also, and also proposals which no longer exist. Or it's not that they no longer exist, but they're redlined or yellow lined. So so this email is not current.
But I think it contains the kernel of what we're trying to do. And we can at least pull up the first 6. So let me share my screen again. I have your email in front of me. One moment. Okay. I think so. There's many in which the sense is the amendment doesn't happen until this convention is over. I think that's nearly, I think that's really what's in dispute. Like, look at the one for RR. That one has some very specific language that, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't want to change. I think what was in dispute there with RR was, should that say adjournment sine die, or should that say final adjournment?
Correct.
Oh,
And that proviso has changed since I sent this email out.
but I still think the issue is, isn't it adjournment sine die versus final adjournment?
Correct.
Mr. Bracco, I'm not going to let you make a
Art.
motion though, Mr. Bracco, because I think
That's
Mr.
fine.
Roulette has that privilege. But if you wanted to just speak to the issue.
The proviso on proposal RR was struck in the meeting that we passed it in.
Oh, that's correct. I forgot. Okay, so most of them, except does O still exist? Or was O redlined or yellow lined? Look at
Those
red.
still exists.
Okay. So the only one that was a little different was O. And I still think the operative phrases shall not take effect until the final adjournment of the convention at which they are adopted, which is the similar language in all of these others. So what I'm understanding though, it's obviously your motion. So if I'm wrong, please say it differently. I think what you preferred was final adjournment. If I'm understanding your motion is what you're trying to get to is for it to, everywhere it says adjournment sine die of the convention at which it is adopted, you'd like it to say final adjournment.
Correct. That's my motion. And if people like sine die better, then put sine die on all the ones where it currently says final adjournment, but have it be one way or the other so that it's not switching back and forth.
We're going to do something a bit unconventional. If someone objects and believes their rights are being violated by this, we won't do it this way. But I think this will get us where we want to go faster. I think we should take a vote in which everyone who wants it to say final adjournment, when Sylvia does a roll call, just says final adjournment. And everyone who wants sine die, just say sine die. And then we'll have a list of votes for final adjournment, a list of votes for sine die, and whichever one gets the majority wins. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Okay, but there's
Madam Chair?
debate first.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. C.
that's perfectly fine, because basically you're kind of running a shortcut on a substitution, but yeah.
Yeah, and not wasting 10 minutes of people's time. But it's open for debate before we get to that vote. Let me pull up the participant screen because I did want to I see Mr. Seebeck's hand. Did you wish to debate?
No, it was just went down.
Okay, I would. I'm arguing. And Mr. Roulette, did you wish to speak for your preference before I spoke?
Sure. I like final adjournment because it's plain English, because the majority of the convention delegates won't know what CNADA is, and then they'll have to Google it. This is the least important thing I'm gonna be like this doesn't matter that much, except that it is uniform. I like final adjournment because almost everybody knows how it's done, knows what that means.
Thank you, Mr. Roulette. I'm arguing for CNADI because that's first, let me say I'm not going to commit ritual suicide if it ends up being final adjournment. If for any of you were hoping for that, sorry to dash your hopes. I think we need to educate our delegates on the correct terminology. As I said before, a lot of times these are our future candidates. That's the type of terminology that's used in public chambers everywhere. It is the correct terminal. I know final adjournment is used in some places, but sine die, there's no, if you were to say to me right now, can you think of any circumstance in which final adjournment would be ambiguous? I'd say no, I can't. But that doesn't mean there isn't one. It just means I can't think of one. Sine die has no chance whatsoever for being ambiguous. None. And once we explain it once, then delegates are educated. Dr. Moulton and then Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, I completely agree with Mr. Roulette. I think that we should have it either all one way or all the other way. And I lean slightly in favor of final adjournment, just because it's more easily understandable by people not well versed in Robert's Rules of Order. So I'm not going to lose any sleep if it goes the other way, but that's how I'm going to be voting.
Just to point out that Mr. Jacobs, I would invite you to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's a Roberts term. I think that is an overall everywhere used in parliamentary law term. And I'm waiting to see if he jumps in to tell me
May I
I'm wrong.
speak?
And without the committee's objection, yes, go ahead, please.
If there is no objection, yeah, it is a Robert's rule term, and it is a general term used in parliamentary procedure. There could be ambiguity if you would have some other term in a couple of possible situations.
I'm going to ask the committee, is there any if you have those situations in mind?
I do.
Committee, is there any objection to Mr. Jacobs stating what those, because I can't think of any. I'm giving a moment, yell, because there's hands up for other things. Is there an objection to Mr. Jacobs briefly stating where an ambiguity could be? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Without objection, one would be if you should have an adjourned meeting of a convention. There could be a question about a final adjournment. The second one would be if you were to have a special meeting of a convention for disciplinary action, which is possible, but very unlikely. But there could be a few of those unusual situations where there could be some misinterpretation of final adjournment versus adjournment sine die.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jacobs. I think I agree with you on the disciplinary thing, and they're actually, it's not something I'm in favor of, but there had been some slight rumblings of that, which I hope does not happen. Mr. Seebeck.
Simple terms, sine die or die. It's the right term to use. And frankly, if the delegates are going to be participating in debate and we're involved with parliamentary procedure, they need to learn what it means.
I'm gonna just one thing. I'm gonna say this from memory. It might be slightly incorrect. I know this is a proviso, so it's not in the bylaws per se, but Mr. Seebeck and I have been through this with plain language versus technical language. Obviously, simple is preferred where there's no loss of clarity. But if you can't have both, more words or more technical words are preferred. I know that's not the language that Roberts uses in Principles of Interpretation, but it certainly is the spirit of it. That when you can't have both, clarity is always to be preferred. Is there any further debate? Okay, so Ms. Arrowwood, when you call upon everyone, please either say final adjournment, which means that's the vote, that's what you'd like it to say, or say sine die, which is that is what you would like it to say. Okay, Ms. Arrowwood, if you would please take the vote.
Arrowwood, final adjournment. Rocco.
Sine die.
Sizelski.
Sine die.
Harlows. Oh, I'm sorry. Latham.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Martin.
Sine die.
Moulton.
Final adjournment.
Rowlett.
Final adjournment.
Ruffo.
Sine die.
Seebeck.
Sine die.
All right. Mr. Latham.
I'll abstain.
All right. Madam Chair. At this point, we have 3 for final adjournment and 5 for sine die. Do you care to vote?
On this particular one, I do. I'd like it because we're doing this so unorthodox. I want to make it clear that it's a majority of the committee. So I'd like to vote for sine die.
All right. All right, we have 3 for final adjournment and 6 for sine die and 1 abstain.
Okay, I will smooth those out where appropriate. Now I know, Mr. Roulette, this wasn't put on the agenda, so and I'm not thinking clearly. I know Mr. Roulette had been speaking with a member, and I'd like to maybe have informal discussion on this. Maybe we could take it up as a vote next meeting because people weren't really prepared to vote, and maybe Mr. Roulette's not prepared to speak to it, but it was that language on resolving affiliate disputes. Do you recall what I'm speaking of, Mr. Roulette?
Yeah, I remember, and I'd prefer to put it off to the next meeting, not because basically the member who wanted that language clarified, I think maybe the survey should go out first and we could get even more feedback, and then
I think that's wise.
I'll know better what I want to do in a couple weeks, I think, if I want to do anything.
Okay. Then our next order of business would be, first, are we good with 2 weeks? And I'm going to try in those 2 weeks to get a survey out. Again, it's some behind the scenes stuff. I'll keep you guys posted though on the bylaws list on how that's going. And then I would, oh, I know what I needed to do before survey goes out, but well, okay, this is what I'm going to ask the committee. One of the things we also need to decide now is our rationales. We're in February, and if we do 3 surveys, we could do them through March to the first week of April. It gives the chair more time. I don't remember who was heading up the rationales, but Mr. Latham, I think it was I'm going to direct this to Mr. Latham because I know he was on it. If I get you a draft report that has everything in the order that we just passed, and with the rationales we've kind of been using for the town halls, if I get that to you this weekend, do you think the rationales subcommittee could work on it on their own? Even if you have a meeting, you do it over email, can at least do the first 6, if not all 15 before next meeting, and we can pass them, but at least the first 6.
Well, let me answer it this way. I don't doubt the capabilities of Dr. Moulton and Mr. Bracco, who I believe are also on the committee. I have attempted to reach out to both of those gentlemen with some shared documents, and I haven't gotten any feedback yet. So I don't know if that's been going to spam. That was actually just something I was going to bring up in the meeting to see if they're getting those or not getting those. So, and of course, as we know, it's easy to edit a document by yourself. Drafting by committee is more involved. So I could do this by myself, but of course we have a committee. So I certainly want the committee members to participate if they can. I'm just using this opportunity to check in with them to see what they are available for.
So I do see some hands, Dr. Moulton.
I serve on the rationales committee. I've been holding off from doing stuff until we figure out what's redlined and what's in the report. Now that we know that, I'm full speed ahead on this. And I have a lot of time this weekend. So anything you get to me this weekend, I will work on and put a lot of time into. Thank you.
Can I ask Dr. Moulton, are you getting the documents I'm trying to share? Are those showing up in your email inbox?
Yeah, I mean, I replied to your email about that.
Okay, great. Would want to hear from Mr. Bracco as well, just if that's working. And it's a little confusing for them because I think I started to do a shared Excel spreadsheet, then I went to a Word document, then I may have even done a Google document. So I just want to know that those are all hitting just because I haven't had any response. Maybe I did actually get one from Chuck, but I'm not recalling it.
I'd have to dig through my email, probably take a little bit more time than we should spend on this, but I can follow up with you off after the meeting or another time or something. But
okay.
I don't know if we wanted to do an actual meeting like Zoom.
Well, that I'm going to leave to you guys to discuss.
Yeah,
that
we can
here.
do that offline. So,
okay.
But yeah, thanks for everybody's feedback.
This is what I suggest then for next meeting. Unless my health takes, I do think I'm now rapidly on the upswing. The difference between today and yesterday is significant. That might be overly ambitious, but I'll let you know by midday Saturday, I will get you a draft report because it shouldn't be difficult It's one great thing about the town halls. That's in the order that we've passed. And then you guys run with it. At least come with the first 6. But if you come with all of them, that's great. But let's also put on the agenda for next week and maybe work out what we can over email is the way we need to rework the e-balloting language since we dropped the balloting rewrite. So I would suggest those 2 things be on our agenda in 2 weeks. Another task I'll have during these 2 weeks is to put some pressure on the chair that we're going to want to send out a survey in 2 weeks or as close thereto as possible. So if that works for everybody, we still have a few more minutes in this meeting. We generally don't have on the record closing comment, and I am not keeping this room open past our normal time because I do need to get back to bed. But since we still do have time, I know some guests joined us after we called to order, or if there's any committee members that wish to offer final public comment, now is your opportunity. Just, I see some hands. Mr. Jacobs.
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to note, since it did come up, and since it's come up several times today, I'm not the guy bringing it up. There is an article that I wrote earlier in 2023 that does cover the disciplinary process in the Libertarian Party. It's just in a footnote in the article. I am putting a link to the article, which is online, in chat. It is on digital page 11, I believe is where it starts. It is a very difficult process. It is not easy. It is not supposed to be easy. But it would be possible to do it. I don't recommend it.
Everyone knows my opinion on it, but there's been chatter on the subject with anger over people who are threatening lawsuits. So, not something I've ever been in favor of. Quite obviously, I have a very bad experience with the whole topic in general. But I'm glad we clarified sine die. I don't think there is any kind of appetite whatsoever in the Libertarian Party to start doing things like that. I think, as you know, I think it's the province of state parties. And as Mike Seebeck knows, I don't even like it in state parties. We had a big argument about that. I don't want to say argument. We had a vigorous debate in Colorado.
Animated discussion.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone could check that out if they wish. But I honestly don't think there's any kind of appetite in the LP for that.
Madam Chairman, may I continue very briefly?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yes, I think if you take a look at the article and you see the difficulties in doing it, you will realize how much cold water this has been thrown on the idea of doing disciplinary action.
Good.
It is not easy.
Good. Once you start, here I'm going to make a libertarian joke, sometimes we're really gung-ho to do something until we realize how much work it is. So I'm glad. It's extraordinarily difficult. I think that's a very dark, dark road. Unless, of course, and this is a joke that, Mr. Seebeck, I think was there. He'll get it too. Unless you're badly singing karaoke in a very ugly white jacket. Mr. Seebeck, then Dr. Moulton.
Yeah, just a couple of things for you, Madam Chair. Per your request, the platform recordings from Tuesday have been uploaded, and I did find the first half of the previous week's, the 6th recordings, and those have been uploaded also. So you have those to muck around with at your leisure.
Oh, great. Okay.
So those are done.
Doc, crap, there was something else I wanted to say and I don't remember what it was. Oh, Mr. Seebeck, if I could ask you a question before we get to Dr. Moulton. I know you haven't chaired these nationally, and I don't know if you have much familiarity with SurveyMonkey, but what is your opinion on using that for platform? You've filled out SurveyMonkey surveys before, I know.
I fill them out, but I've never actually constructed one. So I can honestly say I don't have an opinion on how good they are on that side of it, one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moulton.
Briefly on going forward from here, I do not favor adding more things to our report. I think it would be a good idea either 2 weeks from now or soon thereafter to talk about the ordering of the yellow proposals. I'm not as opposed to moving like a red to a yellow. If people feel that we should jigger those around. And I know people are passionate about this proposal or that proposal. I think we have a good solid report here. I think this is a report we should be able to get through. I don't think we're going to have much extra time after this, but if we do, I think we should have some yellows standing by. And I think we as a committee should get together a basic ordering and then give the chair, some discretion depending on reading the room. So I think that's the best way forward. So my suggestion would be if next week, or maybe even between these 2 weeks, we could do what we did here for the ordering, except do that for yellows, and maybe have people,
Okay.
if they think any red should be promoted to yellow, could make a case for
Okay.
that. That's my suggestion, at least.
Well, yeah, I'll start a spreadsheet for that too. That might be closer to the beginning of the week, just because I'm trying not to overextend myself. But yeah, I think that's a good idea because I did already separate them out. I could add columns. And yeah, I think the work of this committee now up through convention is going to be a lot of smoothing and whatever. And as I said, there is a proposal that I am intending upon reviving. I know you are adamantly opposed. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'm kind of reading the room in my own peer group as well. When there's things that I think have a high likelihood of coming from the floor, sometimes the wording's not the best. But that's going to be up to the committee. We have right now our report, and I think Dr. Moulton's made it very clear, and I think some other people feel likewise that it's going to be very difficult, and we'll have to make a very persuasive argument to change from here. I think we're all in agreement, at least on this point, that the sweet spot is between. Some people think it's at the bottom. Some people think it's at the end, and there might be people in between. Between 15 and 18, I think, is where where we've landed. That's the sweet spot. Dr. Moulton's very firm. It's 15. I think it's a little bit higher, but right now we're at 15. Okay, would anyone else like to speak in public comment, kind of free for all? Mr. Martin.
Yes, Madam Chair, would it be in order for me to move for an early adjournment so that you can get back to your recovery?
Oh, certainly. If there's no one else who wants to speak, that's what would naturally happen anyway. So seeing no one else really that wants to speak, we've all got our. Go ahead, Dr. Moulton.
I did want to speak a little bit, but unrelated to all this, and it could be after adjournment. I don't know if you'd want to stick around for 5 minutes after adjournment or something like that. I don't want to hold people up.
I really want to go back to bed.
Oh, it can wait. Never mind. Forget about it. Sorry.
No worries, Dr. Moulton. All right, seeing no further public comment, We are adjourned at 8:49 Mountain Time, 10:49 Eastern, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so very much. Have a good evening.